to the lynda.com page. So write this down. Designing a Promo with Cinema 4D by Rob Garrett. And the one we're going to be doing is Chapter 5. Okay, so there's this whole, he makes this whole promo about with animated sharks for a show called Shark Zone, right? We're going to just make our own shot with the sharks and other creatures. But we just need to jump in here at Chapter 5, the modeling a shark scene. So just Chapter 5 for Wednesday, right? So we want to have completed shark. So this is going to be, and then Wednesday we're going to UV edit the shark, right? So we've got a sort of a grasp on the UVs. The shark modeling is going to be a little bit different than the modeling we've done in the past. We're going to be not sort of assembling it with separate primitives. We're just going to be working from one cube. And so if I look at what I have here, downloads, in his downloads, you'll find, everybody know where the downloads are? If you go to exercise files, you can get the zip of everything. Well, again, we'll be working from the profile of a shark. If you want to get your own profile, you certainly can. We would want it to be something from straight on from the side. It's relatively well oriented. So this would not be good. This would not be good. There we go. And let's bring this in from the front. So again, under options, configure, we can bring in the back view. What is taking so long? Here we go. Okay, and let's try and work to scale here. So if we look at our project settings in terms of scale, let's change it to feet, and I don't know this off the top of my head. To 33, okay. And then under edit, so you have to change your project settings, and then in your preferences, units, make sure we're in feet here as well. So this will be relatively to scale. Okay, so now orienting it, I can make a cube, and let's say that the cube size is going to be in the Z direction, let's say 25 foot. I guess that's an average whale shark size. By like, I don't know, 5, 10-ish, I don't know, something like that. There we go. And so now I can come back to my display options here. So I know this box is 10 by 5 by 25, 25 being this direction. And so I can come back to our display options, configure, and scale this down so that this is the right size. Cool. And I'll just sort of like adjust that by hand. I don't have an overhead view here, but I might do. Yeah, so it's got to be either use this, a shark, has to be a shark, because we're going to do a shark first, then we'll do a whale. And if you look inside, didn't I already do this? Didn't unzip. Let's look here. Yeah. Nope, that's our premiere. If this ever unzips, there's another, the exact shark profile that he uses in there, but the process is going to be the same, okay? So the title for your page in your notes is box modeling, okay? So we have a box and we're going to be adding cuts to this. You're going to be able to follow along with this tutorial 90-ish%. There'll be some differences, especially with the knife tool. The knife tool, he's using an older version. The knife tool will be a little bit different, but the concepts are the same. The concept is that we're going to be making cuts and manipulating this box to create this same shark profile. So I've got the cube here. I've got it relatively sized up. I'm going to hit C to put this into editable polygon mode. And the roundness of the organic shape is going to come from the subdivision surface. So if I put this in here, just in this view, you'll see that it smooths out what I have for this box. Let's maybe scale this a little bit that way-ish. And of course, let's look at rotating with lines. Oh, when I scaled it, I didn't scale it along the right direction. There we go. I only want to scale it in that direction. Now we can control the relative sharpness of this. I'm going to turn this off for now by adding edge cuts at the appropriate places. So let's come back here and turn this down first of all. So configure transparency so they can really see what I'm doing. Make sure that this has X-ray so that even in the other view I can see through it. That's super handy. I got my orientation off here. All right, so this is the X direction, 25. Okay, let's get this correct. There we go. So let's go ahead and I had the Z direction 25. I want the X direction to be 25 here to make sure that this is actually correctly oriented. So let's come back here and right about there. There we go. And let's say right about that. Like this is going to be the core of the shark. Okay. So remember, red X, we're in the right direction now. Maybe bring it down right about there. Right, so this contains the core of it. Cool. Now, see Bring in sub D surface, we're good. All right, now turn this off for now. Let's make some cuts to where we're gonna need the important body parts. So the beginning, here, here, right? There's gonna need to be extrusions here because of the fin, here and here. Actually, let's step back before we hit C and just add a little bit more geometry. We could always do it with the knife later, but let's do 4 and 4. This may be a little bit different from his process, but it's the same general idea. So 2, 2, 2. There we go. Now let's see. Make sure we can bring this in. All right. And let's get the knife tool. Turn this off. K. Now, the different thing is the knife tool just used to be K. Now it's a combination of either KJ, KK, or KL, all right next to each other on the keyboard, right? So you have to know how you want to cut. So do you want to cut a plane, do you want to cut a line, or do you want to cut a loop? And for our case, since this is already around, we can go with KL for loop path, as long as we are in this mode. And the thing you need to be careful, most careful of when you're using the knife tool, right? So I do KL to make sure I'm in loop mode, is this checkbox, whether or not it is selected. Restrict to selection. That means only cut the stuff that I currently have selected. If this is off, it'll cut the whole way through your model, right? And so in this case, you always want to be doing these types of cuts in your orthographic views, not in the perspective view. For loop mode, it'll be fine. It'll find its whole way across. But it's much easier to size stuff up here. So for instance, I'm going to cut here. Cut maybe right about here. Right? Because this fin kind of comes out and then around. I'm going to cut. I already have this one here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to select this one. I'm going to go UL to select that one, and then E. I can just move that to where I want it, because I don't want any extra ones, right? Because once I have the sub D surface involved, if I have extra cuts, it's going to affect how it smooths. Because remember, it smooths between edges. So if you have extra edges, it's going to make it blockier, right? And so in order to control the shape but make it smooth as much as possible, we're going to want to really use the minimal amount of edges. So we've got that. Let's go back to KL. And let's say there, 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 there. And maybe here at the end. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now let's start bringing things in. So I'm going to go to UL to start fleshing out the shape of this, where I can start bringing this in. So if I go to T, so UL to select the loop, and then T to bring things down to just sort of get the profile happening, right? So I'm just working from the side right now. I think it's easier to work from the side and then start to work from the top to get the general shape. You know, in this case, I only have this side view. Let's see if there's anything. Whale shark top. Now, I'm not going to be able to bring. You want a shirt with a whale shark? Okay. So I wouldn't want to bring this in because it's not calibrated with the other one, but at least gives me a reference to work with as far as like what the top view should kind of like the ballpark I should be hitting with that. Right, in his, he has a side view and a profile view that are oriented, so you could bring both of those in. He's just doing a regular shark, but if we're doing something a little bit different, let's bring that in and keep that here as a reference. Reference, reference, reference. Okay, so I've got this here. Now I can bring this down and up-ish. Here we go. UL, grab this. T, bring this down. UL, T. All right, so I'm bringing it in and then also moving it so it's kind of lined up. Same thing here. UL, T, Maybe that one needs to move over a little bit. T. But anything, I want them to be a little bit bigger rather than a little bit smaller, because it's the subdivision surface is going to bring things in. Right, so what's the fattest point on the shark? This point here, or at least from the side. There we go. And let's get this one, UL, T, E, T. Here we go, UL, E, or T, E. There we go, UL, T, E, T, E, UL, T, E. Maybe this one needs to rotate just ever so slightly. Kind of like that. And then here at the tail, let's same thing here. I want to get just the back side. So let's actually just get this. Just that one. It wouldn't let me get that one over from this view, so I'm going to get that over there. Something about like that. All right, and here, in order to get this shape happening a little bit more, I'm going to need to start to go into point mode. Right, so let's go to point mode, and now I want to be able to select this point and all the points that are aligned with that one directly going back, right? And so I want to make sure that only select visible elements is unchecked, right? So that I select the whole way through. In this case, right? Sometimes you want that on, sometimes you don't. You need to know the difference. And so here, I'm going to move that up. Here, I'm going to move this one up. Let's move these back a little bit. Back. Back in there. Now, as I'm getting this happening, I want to try and maintain the smoothness of the lines, right? So it's got to flare out here because of the tail, but I want to try and keep the lines of the animal, the lines of the shark, as smooth as possible. These are the edge loops. You want your edge loops to be continuous and smooth. And so I should be able to line these up. All right. So this one's going to need to curve down into that. This one's going to need to curve down into there. Probably bring this back a little bit. And especially with here, we're going to need to sort of like control the curvature of all of this. So in this case, in order to get that to curve back and around, we may need to have a couple other edge loops here, right? So I've got this kind of in position. Let's smooth this out. smooth this out. There we go. That looks better. And again, what kind of polygons are we trying to avoid? N-gons. How many sides does an n-gon have, Jake? More than 4. How many? What do you call it when it has 4? Quad. Right? So triangles, if absolutely necessary. Okay, so here's what this looks like right now. We're trying to sub-D back on. I've got my basic side profile, and you see how the subdivision surface is smoothing the surface of this thing. So far, so good. All right, so now let's go back to our reference. We're going to need to smooth things out and also adjust the general thickness of this one, right? So I want it to be, it's got a fat head and then kind of like a tail. So if we look at this, I'm going to keep this up there for reference. Make sure I know which side is which, right? So this is the front. There we go. And let's look at that. And in this case, it might be good to have these two open. That way you can kind of see where you're at. So you know that you're selecting here and maybe moving over there. But if we look at this, we need to have it smaller, and then it's a little bit fatter here. So if we look at this, we may need to add more edge loops based on this top topology in order to get that happening. If you see this, it kind of flares out to the gills before this comes back. And so in that case, let's go to K again. KL and polygon mode. Make sure this is selected. KL. There we go. Because this is where the initial, where the first fin, whatever these are, biologists.
Well, that's the dorsal on the back.
Right. I think we all got that one. I don't know. The side fins, flippers, it flares out before it hits that, right? So let's add 2 edge loops first, actually. Let's add one at the front to be able to control the rounding here, and then another one there. So here, and let's say right here. There we go. And now we can grab this stuff. So go to live selection, let's go to point mode, and again, make sure only select visible is off. So we can kind of toggle this stuff. So let's go ahead and, I'm going to go to the draw rectangle selection. It's a little bit easier here. And bring this in. And just grab spacebar, grab that one, T, and I'll bring this in. Something like that. And then here, spacebar, T, out a little bit before it comes back here for the fins, spacebar. So this is going to be where the fins kind of come out. And if we look, while the fins are happening, which will be at this juncture, that's going to be the part that comes back in, T. And then let's grab all of these before we get to the tail stuff and bring this in. grab this one here. I don't want to do that. Let's just get these. Yeah, so this is one of the situations where I don't want this. Command. There we go. T. There'll be a lot of this, because you'll be moving things based on this view, but selecting them based on this view. For these kind of cylindrical objects, there's a lot of that. So let's bring that in-ish. And then grab these guys and bring this way down. There we go. And so if we look at what we got over here, that's better. And if we look at the sub-D surface, we're getting there, right? As far as the smoothing of this whole thing, definitely needs to get thinner here before the tail. This part needs to be compressed, so let's go to UL, grab that, T, bring this in. Even more. There we go. And we don't want the flare so much right there. UL, T. Just sort of smoothing that out. And then we needed to it's not a box, it's a whale. So we've kind of defined like the outer edges of it, but these top edges need to come in actually. And so let's go ahead and turn that off and grab those. So for instance, all along here it needs to be kind of collapsing in. So here, all of these guys.
They're the pectoral fins, by the way.
The pectoral fin, yes, of course. Okay, so only select visible elements. This case, see what happened there? This is what happens. I had only select visible elements off, and I was selecting all this stuff on the other side of the whale, which I do not want to do now. I just want to grab this stuff. Something got a little discombobulated here. We'll fix that in a second. Let's move these in from here, here. Not this one. Command click. Let's come back to here. Grab these along the edge. Here. Here, here, here. And start to bring these in. T. Bring this in. To start to smooth this out. And see what that looks like with the sub-D on. There we go. See, that does a lot for fixing the top of the shark, right? Making it look somewhat like it's supposed to look. Let's look at what happened here at the front. Okay, this is a surefire sign that something has gone wrong in that I've got some inverted normals. How can I tell otherwise? If I come to here, what's the normal, Josh, of a polygon?
The what?
What is the normal of a polygon?
The normal?
Kimba, help him out. Bruno, help them out. It's blue, but the blue and the orange are the normals, but what are they telling us?
Which way they're facing.
Which way it's facing. Remember, they only face one way. You want them to face out. So you want your objects to be all blue facing out, or all orange facing out, all blue facing in. Okay? You don't want to have two. Polygons are not two-sided. They really only have one side. The other side is like not there. You can get in these really weird situations where it's like it ends up looking in the program like a black hole, right? Or it's just like invisible from the other side. It's really weird because you can't end up with that kind of stuff in real world. And so something happened here with the points, and so this normal, this got drug down, this normal got inverted. Another way to look at the normals, if you look at all of them here, come here and grab some of the polygons, and we turn on, options, polygon normals. This is what the program sees as the normal of the polygon, a 90-degree perpendicular angle to the surface of the polygon. This is super important for the rendering math. There's a lot of things that depend on figuring out this normal angle in order to figure out how light bounces off the object and how the camera's relationship to it. So that's under display options normals. So to fix this one, I think it's just this point got drugged down below it, and so if we grab this guy right here and move it up, there we go. And let's fix the edge flow here. This got kind of compressed somehow. So all times I want to try and keep my edge flow as smooth as possible. So just trying to clean that up. And the front of it looks really good right now, right? Because we got quad, 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 all quads as far as the eye can see. Because I started off with a box, which is quads, and then I made cuts to it. If you make a straight cut in a box, you're gonna still have quads, right? As long as you don't get anything mixed up there. So there we go, we got that top, and now let's bring the bottom in so we have the same kind of thing happening. So grab these guys.
Can you loop select on the edge mode? Or on the vertex
Yeah,
mode?
you could. So I mean, I could go UL to grab that, right? Loop select is a really good barometer for whether your model is any good. If loop select doesn't work, like if it can't find the loops around your object, that means probably you've got some modeling issues, right? Because loop select isn't magic, like it's not going to fix your problems. And if you don't have balanced geometry, like it can't find its way. So I don't want all of them, I just want some of them. So I could, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? I could select the ones I want or select them all and then deselect the ones I don't want, right? So I could keep those and get rid of, I don't want to bring that in. I don't want to touch those right now. There we go. And so now I've got them. I can go T, make sure I'm just moving in this direction to bring this in. And in addition to that, I'm also going to go ahead and move these up a little bit, sort of create that more streamlined shape. And so now if I turn this on, there we go. That's not bad. Less is more, right? Don't make a whole bunch. The more cuts you make, the more polygons, more edges, more points you got to manage, right? So you need enough to define your shape, but any more than that, and you're just making life more difficult for yourself. So that's our basic workflow. And so now for bringing in fins, what's the tool we're going to use to make fins? Yeah, extrude NURB. So in this case, let's come back here and let's look at the side fins over here. They're going to need to come out on this side. And if I grab this cube, again, I usually don't work with sub D on. Obviously, we're going to turn on at the end to like smooth everything out, but just for working for the time being, we'll look at this and look at our whale. Let's look at some more whale reference. Right? If you're going to use the one that he uses, you'll be able to follow along more closely. If you venture off the beaten path, you'll need to make some adjustments. But no guts, no glory, right? Yeah, so we're going to extrude out, and then out, and out. You don't, this is a big thing, you do not want your fins to end in a point. They'll end in a quad, okay? It'll be a very small quad, but don't end them in a point. That's, it's gonna not work well with the sub D surface, right? So at the very tip, down here, we should have a quad, not a point, right? So we're gonna need to make sure that that is the case. Let's do the side one here. And so I'm gonna need to bring this in, and then start moving some of these points around, these edges around appropriately. So let's select here. And this is one of the good ones where knowing whether we're in object mode or world mode is really important. And so if I'm in edge mode here, we'll look at this. I can move this kind of along here. The other tool to make sure it stays right along there is slide. M-O. So let's try slide with the edge. It keeps it aligned to the surface, right? So this is sliding it. If I were just to move it, see how it's no longer completely aligned to like where this, yeah, that looks really, like, see what happened there? So that's what happens when I moved it. Even though this is oriented in the right direction for the axis, if I go to slide, I will be able to move it, and now it stays oriented, which is way better. And even here, I want to bring this in because it kind of comes out, and then we want to have that, the fins have this biologist.
Like the armpit.
I'm sure it's not called that in a shark, but yeah, we got to make sure that we have the shark armpit. And let's extrude this out. And so this is one case where I probably want to look from the top. It's coming out more of the side, actually, not so much further down. So let's go ahead and MS slide. Let's move this. Yeah, it is really more out of the side of this shark, huh? He does more like a Greg White style shark, and that's kind of down. Well, it's kind of below the ridge there, right? So let's just move this up. So it's like there. There, it's more like that. We'll go with that for now. All right, and come back here. Let's go ahead and extrude this out. And look at this from the top. Let's look at that top view again. All right, so it's got to come out, and that gets a cut there. So let's say kind of like that. Let's move it a little bit further out. Okay, and let's go back to KL, loop mode, knife loop mode, and make a cut pretty close, right about here, and I'm gonna make another cut right about halfway, right? So now UL, I can grab this edge, and I need to make that armpit, and so this right here, I can bring this out to sort of form that and even smush it a little bit. There we go. And then maybe move this back whoops, let's make sure we get the whole way around. E. And then here's what I was talking about with the tip of the fin. We want to bring this very much together. To create that kind of look. Maybe even more. What does this look like with it on? It's a little bit sharper. So in this case, let's bring this together a little bit more. Back. This might need to rotate just slightly. So straighten that out. There we go. That's giving us that sharper point at the end, right? So that's totally important, right? By default, a lot of people think like you want a point out here to make this sharp, but no, you really want, because of the subdivision surface, you want edges where you need to sharpen things, and that allows us to control that.
Could you essentially model this only half of it? And
Yeah,
then
that's
throw
exactly
in
what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to do the symmetrical stuff first, right? So these pectoral fins, and then the
Those are
other
the
fins.
Anal fins? For real. And then you have the pectoral and the caudal fins.
Okay.
Or the dorsal fin.
There we go. We're learning stuff. We're learning a lot of stuff. Yeah, so you want to do this guy, this guy, this guy. I think on all sharks they have those 3 sets at the bottom, right? So this one, this one, this one. And then, yeah, if we've got everything lined up correctly and we haven't bumped any stuff, we can really take advantage of this using the symmetry object. Symmetry object is going to do this, right? Because you could extrude both sides at the same time, but it's just sort of easier to do one side at a time. And so if you put the object in there, that's the wrong type of symmetry. You want symmetry on the XZ? Nope. The XY. There we go. Is that doing it? Yep. And it does it. Right. And so if we put then this whole thing, right? So this is the desirable hierarchy. Everybody making note of this? Sub D, symmetry, cube, right? And look at that. That looks whale sharkish. Those fins might be a little big. Reference, 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 right? I don't know. Let's get in there. You need some. Gills are going to need to go over here a little bit. They seem a little far forward. But we're on the right track. Now, that will get us, once we have the other fins in place, that'll get us this far, right? Now, the next challenging part is going to be the other fins that are in the center. And so those, it's best, right? So the symmetry is a procedural object, it's doing it procedurally. Just like when we did other procedural objects and used procedural deformers, we'd want to save a copy because we're going to need to make it not procedural in order to get stuff out of the top. And so I'm going to go ahead and make a hider, just like he does. So I have a backup in here. So this will be my hider. And I just turned it off so that you won't be able to see it. And I'm going to Command-C, Command-V, and dump that in there so I can go back to it if I need to. I can just collapse that up. And now, I don't want to hit C on the sub D, because again, the more polygons you have, the more polygons you need to manage, right? And so I want to hit C on the low poly version. And if everything is going correctly, that essentially makes a single mesh that has all the symmetry like printed now. It's all ready to go. Cool. So now I could come in here and use KL, loop selection. Yeah, our dorsal fin is going to be coming out of over here. So if we come in here, actually let's do it this way. I think this is the way Rob does it. If we grab these, what's going on there? Got a weird issue with the symmetry. Let's step back. Got the cube. Oh, we want to erase the other half of the object before we hit C on the symmetry, right? The symmetry does it, but essentially it's doubled up to one side. So let's turn this off. Let's come up to the top, and let's get rid of the other half, right? So that we can do this. So I'll go into point mode. I'll go into box mode. I want to select through, so I want only select visible elements off, and I want to get not the stuff in the center line, everything just to the side of it, right? And I can't stress this enough. When you delete, you must delete in point mode, okay? Not polygon mode. If you delete polygons, it'll leave stray points behind. You have these points that aren't connected to anything. If you delete points, it'll get rid of all the stuff. There we go. So let's delete that. Now we have exactly half the shark. How did I know something was wrong before? Because I selected that polygon and saw it was both orange and blue at the same time. That's because the normals were messed up. There are two polygons in the same place. Now if I turn this back on, boom. I can see that it's done the right thing with my shark. Now I can go ahead and hit C on this. And now if I come to this one, and I select a polygon on top, now, good, right? It doesn't have that weird shading, because now there's not two. Before I had this second half of the shark there, when I hit C on the symmetry, they duplicated it and kept the other stuff, right? So that's why I had two. And so now I can grab this, and let's go ahead and make our dorsal fin. So that's going to be I for inner extrude to bring that in. If it makes two here, that's because you have the preserve groups off. You need to make sure that's on in this case. And now I can come in here, and I need to move these closer together. And so I'm going to grab this point here and use that, again, the slide to move it along the surface. MS, MS,
M-O.
M-O, M-O. There we go. Move that in, move that in, move that in, even more over here. These things kind of taper, the fins do. There we go. And now I can grab this, and what am I going to use to pull the fin out? Josh.
Pull the fin out?
Yeah.
Fin out. That would be extrude.
Yes, D. And so I can pull this out. Let's look at this from the side. Ah, my biology is off. Here's where it is on the white shark. This is the first time I've done the whale shark, so let's step back. We need to do this one. D, or I. M-O. Bring this in. Maybe look at this at top view so I make sure it's totally legit. There we go. Even that out a little bit. Now go back here. And let's extrude this guy out. So D. So we need that really close one to make the other armpit, fin pit. I'm sure that's what it's called. And then let's say halfway, and then another one up here. And so now I can manipulate these points. Let's go to point mode here. Bring this guy out. Bring this one down. Whoops. Only select visible elements off, because I want to select through in orthographic mode. I wish there was a default where only select visible elements was automatically turned off if you're in a orthographic selection, because almost all the time that's the case. There might be a way, I'd have to look it up. And let's bring this in over here. That, and again, like that. Maybe good to make another one. Let's see how this looks when I turn on sub D. It's getting there. There we go. This is looking whale sharkish. By the other fins in there. This stuff up here, this fin is obviously much, much thinner. So this may be a case where some of these points have to come out, and then the top ones come in. So here and here, let's not have that one. But let's go ahead and scale these out, T, to create that like dorsal line. And then grab here and here. And let's say here and here. And bring those in. Even more. There we go, that's sharpening that up. Cool. Also, more complicated geometry means more complicated UV mapping, right? So in a big studio, those might be two separate jobs, although usually not. Like where the person modeling, unless it's ludicrously complicated, is also responsible for UV mapping it. And so you don't want to make your life even more miserable later on by having it something that's like impossible to UV unwrap because the geometry was bad. So how do I check here? Again, checking all the normals, right? So if I select here, Command A, something weird happened there. Oh, I dragged these too far. So this is another heads up. I was making an adjustment when I had the sub D on. And you see that it looks okay there, but if I turn this off, these are kind of strange because I dragged them too far. And so there we go. Let's adjust that later on. We don't want anything weird here. And so when you make adjustments with the sub D on, sometimes because of the smoothing, it'll look like it's okay there, but you got to check here, make sure that everything is kosher, right? So I'm not seeing any inverted normals. Everything looks pretty good. And what's the one command we can do to make sure that if there's points that are like double, we can weld them all together? Optimize, yeah. So if I go to point mode, Command A, right click, optimized just as a general cleanup that works. And now this, the mouth here is much different than sort of like the other mouth. It's a large animal.
Not even the biggest one. The mega mouth is. Like Shark Week.
And so he goes through a different process here. I think we're going to be able to create this for the white shark. It's going to be a matter of like sort of drawing or extruding a jaw down from the bottom to create that more shark mouth. For mine, it's kind of like just kind of like a more of a hole here in that sort of general zone. And so here, I might be able to I bring this in, and then D, and then E. So move this back in. T, just sort of shrink this. And that geometry is a little bit weird. Here's where we're going to need definitely to put this in X-ray mode so we can see through the object, see exactly what we're doing. Got something weird on the corner here. Yeah. And so these points here at the end of it, I think need to come up inside. So here and here. Let's bring those way in and up. There we go. If I turn this back on. And in order to get this to start look a little more rounded, here on the edge I might need to bring these down. So here and here. Might need a little more geometry to make this happen, sort of round this out. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need another edge there, right? So this is kind of like the opposite of the fin because it's a hole, but it's ending in a point. This is what I'm talking about with the sub-D surface, where it's ending in a point, and this isn't a great workflow, ending in a point there. We'd rather have 2 points here to control the thickness of this because I can't really expand the side based on this mouth. And so in that case, let's go to KL loop cut mode. And so let's see if that's going to help us at all here as far as finding the actual edge. Not there. Yeah, let's step back before I made the mouth. Redoing is so much faster than trying to fix in modeling. Trying to fix stuff is oftentimes like way more intensive than just going back and sort of doing it again with the knowledge and doing it right. I can't stress that enough. Let's bring these 3 down. So we create more of a snout there. And yeah, so this kind of angles down. You know what I could do here? instead of extruding this part down here, let's sort of bring these other points down and kind of extrude a better shape. So if I bring this down, kind of like so, and then this will make more sense as an extrusion. Only select visible elements on, here, not there, here. There we go. So now, I, D, right? And so I've got an edge now. I think this will work way better. If I turn sub D back on, it's a little bit too straight. Let's go back and change. So now I can start to make these changes here and they'll work. I don't want to have those two edges right there. I want this to a little bit smaller. There we go. And now T. There we go. T. And sort of open up the mouth cavity. And now I can grab sort of here and here. Open that up. Here, here, that up, here, that up. These need to come in. Here and here, come in. Let's get some more reference. We need more of a lip right now. Let's sort of fatten that up a little bit. Yeah, it'd be good if we had more of a lip moving around here. This needs to, these points are too far in. Cool, this will give us an opportunity to do adding an extra edge loop in a tougher way. All right, so it needs to go around here in order to create more of a lip. So this is good, that's good, but you see, based on our geometry, it stops. So we kind of need to carry this around here so that we have, you know, geometry flowing around the lip of the creature, right? So if we go, now we need to be knife. We're going to need to go into K, line cut mode, which allows me to just sort of draw from one point to another point, right? In order to manually cut around the edge. And so if we look at how this is going to go, I can cut around. You guys see how I made that? Right? So I know I want this lip to continue around to the other side. And so I mean K, K. Move this over to here. This has got to come back down to here. And this has got to come back over to here. All right, so now if I come back, good. We end up with the situation, we got the loop, this is flowing around like I want, right? But what's bad? Bruno, what's bad that I've made? What's this? It's a try, right? I don't want a triangle, right? And so I need to clean this up. I think the way I'm going to want to do that is I want to turn this into a quad in this direction, right? So I could bring this, make one more cut. Did that do it, or did that keep cutting the edge? Nope, that's not what I want. I want to push this one over to here. So I think I can do this actually with the, if I select a point, right click. Another great one, slide is great, and stitch and sew. Stitch and sew will merge points together. And so if I go to stitch and sew, I can, you need to have both of them selected first. Then you right click, then you go to stitch and sew. And if I move this to here, I'll put those together. Awesome. Then I can this green line, that is not an actual cut. That's like just telling me there's an end on there. So let's cut there. And then this one, I can dissolve, right click, dissolve. And that is better. So we have quad, quad. This is a triangle right here, but I'm getting the loop flow I want around the edge. Same thing over here. So now let's K, K, go from here to there, and then grab this guy, or let's stitch and sew, point mode, this one, and this one, right click, there we go. That is better. And I can do the same thing on the other side. Right, so when you create these extra edge loops, it's easy to see like where the flow needs to go, but then you really got to clean it up to make sure that we're maintaining our edge loops as cleanly as possible. And so in this case, I could fix the triangle on the bottom. Let me cut the other side. So if I go to K, K, and let's go single cut. So I'll go from here to there, from there to there, from there to there. There we go. And now clean this up with the stitch and sew. Say these two need to get merged together. There we go. And then on the top, these two need to get switched together. This is where that space bar to switch back and forth between the most, actually it's this one and this one. There we go. let's cut from here, KK, here to here, and then dissolve that guy. So this one right here, dissolve this edge, right click, dissolve. There we go. Clean, much cleaner. Now, the only problem is I have a split edge loop. You see that this one goes around the top to form that lip that I want, but then at the bottom, it branches like this. And so if I stitch and sew at the bottom here to sort of bring this together, I think that will help. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, again, stitch and sew here, here, here. Actually, we need to do it this way, here and here. So grab, stitch and sew, boom. There, 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 there. And now, in order to properly move the edge loop, I'm going to go to the slide tool to move these points kind of in the same zone, but then also move them down so I can more easily control the thickness of the lip at the front of the face. There we go. Just looking at it now, like the geometry of the face looks way more accurate to like the shape of the actual whale, right? Or shark. Whale shark. Yeah, that's way better already. Needs a fatter lip still, so let's go ahead in here and UL. Right, and because I fixed the geometry, I can find the loop easily, and so I could fatten this up. And maybe pull this one down. And then turn on the rounding. There we go. There we go. All right, now I'm getting an actual lip happening here. Much better. This top one needs to come out, I think, a little bit. So let's go ahead and grab the top here. Move this forward, kind of like so. This stuff here in the inside the mouth. Just try and open up this cavity a little bit. Right, he goes through making a jaw and teeth for that type of shark. No. And remember, the sub-D surface has two different subdivision levels. When you hit render in the editor, it's subdividing twice. When you hit render at the very end, if I go to here, it's subdividing 3 times. So it's even smoother here, right? By default, those are the actual values. So yeah, there we go. If you look at this in our actual view. You have to take the time to do the other fins. I'm going to be close-ish.
Do you think it? What? I was going to ask you, it's quicker than just to extrude all that from just one cube? You wouldn't have to model some of those things separately and connect them?
Nah. No, not for an object like this. To make sure they line up when everything gets put together. There's not a whole lot of things I would think of that you would do that way, unless it was like separate, like an engine, or like things that are actually separate parts. For organic things like this, not always, but sometimes it's good to think about how is the thing actually formed in real life and try and reverse engineer that process, right? And so, this case, in order to get this kind of smooth line happening, right? If we look at all of our edge flow, really great, right? Quads, as far as the eye can see. When it does branch, we get these star-like, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they're quads on each side. Right? These are the really important parts of the topology of the animal. These points here, here, and here, right? Because that gives us that branching, but we still have quads on all sides. Same thing with the top. Super smooth edge flow, very clean. And because it's clean like this, it'll not only, render well, but when it comes time to animate it, even if we just did a simple animation. That's the wrong way. Bendiform never seems to be in the right direction at the right time. I don't think it moves that much of its body. Again, let's look at it.
Can you add multiple bend deformers onto one object?
Yeah, we're not going to do it with the bend deformer. We'll do it with actual bones.
Ooh.
But just looking here. Yeah, it's long enough that it doesn't, the bend deformer would be really poor at this.
Can you go swimming with the fish?
When it comes time to add the material to the object, are we going to be doing it on the subdivision surface or the
No, on the we'll UV map this, the low poly version, and then bring that back in.
So is it possible for just hypothetically, if you're still working on the die at this point, could you put the die under a subdivision surface and then just cut the unbeveled die? Would that be simpler, or?
Not with the case of the die, because of the way they are actually rounded. The sub D surface wouldn't actually do the best job at that.
Right.
The yeah, not the, yeah, we'd want to rig it with bones. We'll get to that later, but if you have this set up, character, joint tool. And then you were to so making joints that are part of the actual character. For right now. effect, well, just as a quick example, you have the basic flow is, you know, making the skeleton, which will be super simple in this case, and then grabbing character plus the mesh and binding, right? If you bind this to that, it makes this skin deformer, which allows you to control this with that. And so now if I were to rotate this, it comes along. And so I can animate the skeleton and have the tail move. Right. I need to have it go through the whole object, but you get the idea. The two-step workflow there is make skeleton and then bind skeleton to mesh, right? But you can't do that until after everything else is in place. In this case, yeah. So now we'd be able to just very easily set keyframes.
So I have a question. If you're
Mhm.
getting really detailed with like the model and you want to get like ridges and stuff of the body of the shark,
Yeah. So we're not going to go that detailed in the topology. We're going to put the ridges and any sort of bumps that's
In
going to
the
be
texture?
in the texture. Yeah. But let's get rid of this for now. And the rest of it later. Cool? All right, so again, I can't stress this enough. You can either follow along with his shark or find your own whale shark or other shark, right? The most important one is the side view. Chances are you're not going to find a side view and a top view that are aligned, right? So the side view, I think, is the more important one for setting up the basic geometry, right? And I used it as a guide. You know, this isn't exactly the way it is there as far as like the side. I'm just trying to make it look right in my perspective view, right? So the point is not to trace it exactly. The point is to make your composite shape work, right? As far as the general flow. But yeah, from cube to, you know, shark. Yeah, so the ridges, those lines that run down, and then everything else, that's all going to be in the texture. Let me save this.